This is the MV Abdullah, a Bangladeshi bulk carrier ship owned by KSRM Group, and in early March of 2024, it was on its way from Mozambique to the UAE. Its cargo, along with its crew, is 50,000 tons of coal, worth roughly $5.5 million. Its destination was in sight, but one obstacle stood in its way: pirates. 600 nautical miles off the coast of Somalia's capital of Mogadishu, in the Indian Ocean, the pirates would make their move. A group of 15 to 20 Somalian men, riding on small skiffs, make their approach to the MV Abdullah. Upon reaching the vessel, these pirates face almost no deterrence and climb onto the ship using only a hook ladder. Once aboard the Abdullah, the pirates take the ship's crew as hostage members, and in a span of 33 days, end up getting paid a ransom of $5 million. They then free the ship and its crew and flee the crime scene while avoiding government forces. To someone who is unfamiliar with modern-day pirate attacks, it might seem like these men from Somalia got lucky, that by mere chance, they finally struck gold and got paid a handsome fee for their work. I thought the same thing, but I couldn't be more wrong. If you take a look at this chart, you'll see the number of recorded pirate attacks by each year reported by the International Maritime Bureau. At first glance, you can see that the number of attacks has steadily decreased since 2010. By 2023, pirate attacks had fallen from over 600 attempts to just 120. But if we also look at the amount of times that pirates successfully boarded these vessels, this data shows that pirates are also steadily becoming more successful. And if we go to the year 2023, pirates boarded the ships they set out to attack with a 91% success rate. That means that out of these 120 attempts that year, 109 of them resulted in pirates coming aboard the ship, with 4 resulting in a full hijack where pirates take full control of the vessel. Of course, not all of these boardings resulted in ransoms being paid, with some pirates eventually being caught or opting to steal cargo instead. But some of these boardings did in fact result in crew members being taken hostage, big ransom fees, and pirates escaping freely. The primary target of the modern-day pirate are carrier ships, and to paint the picture, I want you to imagine these ships as banks floating out in the ocean, and every time criminals are able to get into these floating banks unscathed, and in some cases without immediately alerting authorities, well, then their odds of getting out with at least something of value dramatically increase. A 91% success rate in boarding vessels by pirates was mind-boggling to me, and I wanted to understand exactly how modern-day pirates were managing to do it. How were they being trained? How were they being paid and escaping after the fact? And most importantly, who was funding them? But before we dive deeper, we have to understand how we got here in the first place. Pirates have existed since the ancient times and have reigned terror on the seas throughout our history. But unlike the pirates of the Golden Age during the 17th century, who had big ships and would often fight wars and privateering for profits, the modern-day pirate has a different ship of choice. They no longer sail the seas, instead opting to use small skiffs and go-fast boats to attack their targets. But one thing does remain the same about the pirates of old and the ones of today. They both have the same motivations. They're poor and often former fishermen who have been hit with tough times and need a way to escape poverty. With a lack of opportunity, they turn to the next best thing: crime. In this case, real-world piracy. If you take a look at this map, you can see where modern-day pirates are from by the highlighted countries. One thing you'll notice immediately is that these areas are in places with weak governments that are struggling with socioeconomic issues like hyperinflation and sometimes even civil war. Venezuela, Indonesia, Nigeria. But let's turn to a country that popularized the modern-day pirate: Somalia. Here, the average person only makes around $600 per year. Imagine living a life on only $50 per month. For the citizens of Somalia, it's a reality. So splitting ransom payments with your pirate crew would seem like an enticing offer, given the circumstances. But as it turns out, poverty isn't the only factor that's causing pirate attacks. Here, you can see all of the pirate attacks mapped out from 1993 to 2023. This shows that, shockingly, Indonesia has historically been the area most affected by these attacks, with 47% of all pirate attacks happening in the East Asia and Pacific area, despite other areas having a lower GDP per capita. But what's more important is looking at global trade routes. The majority of trade has to pass through 12 choke points in order for the world economy to function. When we overlay those 12 choke points with the recorded pirate attacks, we can see that there is a distinct correlation between trade and the locations of these strikes. 6 of these choke points account for most of global trade, and unsurprisingly, this is where pirates concentrate their attacks, and why Indonesia and the international waters near it see more attacks than any other areas. These first 3 choke points are in Southeast Asia, which include the Strait of Malacca, the Lombok-Makassar Strait, and the South China Sea, which together account for 27% of all trade in strategic choke points. And the second 3 points are located near the Red Sea and include the Suez Canal, Strait of Hormuz, and Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which together represent roughly 14% of global maritime traffic. The 6 choke points together make up roughly 41% of trade. More than half of pirate attacks in 2023 were against a bulk carrier, product tanker, or container ship, so it makes sense that the areas with the most trade activity see the most attacks. Weak governments, poverty, and an abundance of ships out in the open on a vast ocean has given rise to modern-day piracy in the 21st century. But still, a 91% success rate in boarding the ships being targeted by pirates. How exactly is this possible? Let's find out and take an inside look at what it'd be like to pull off a modern-day pirate heist. Our crew's journey begins in an almost forgotten fishing town in Somalia. This is Haradhere, located around 250 miles northeast of Mogadishu. Without a way to produce economic opportunities for its people, the town of Haradhere decided it was time for their community to make a change, so they decided to open a stock exchange. The twist? It's for investing in pirate attacks. And no, I'm not kidding. Here, the community and outsiders are able to invest in pirate operations and then receive a cut if it's successful, exactly how you or I would get a return or dividend for investing in publicly traded companies. It's rumored that a lady invested her money to provide pirates an RPG and then got a return of $75,000 at the end of the day. So yeah, this is real and kind of horrifying at the same time. Our crew will receive funding for weapons, boats, equipment, and even intel, sometimes totaling tens of thousands of dollars. And before this, at the same time, or shortly after, they'll be planning their operation. To have a 91% success rate in boarding ships, most pirates aren't just hoping to be successful. No, they're planning a full-on heist, and our crew is no different. Some of our crew members would have been fishermen or even worked in the shipping industry, so right away we'll potentially have insider knowledge. And here's where the equipment comes into play. Our crew will be using GPS trackers to track our target. More specifically, they'll be using automatic identification systems, or AIS, to ping the target. Commercial ships use this system to communicate their location and other information with Vessel Traffic Services, or VTS. Think of VTS like air traffic control, but stationed at ports and near choke points instead of at an airport. So our crew is going to use this to their advantage and see our target's location. They'll split into 2 groups. The foot soldiers will be boots on the ground, or in this case, on the sea. They'll be our attackers. And our second group, consisting of only a few men, will be stationed on our mothership. This will be a 65-foot commercial fishing vessel hijacked by our crew before the start of this operation. Luckily, it's equipped with AIS and other GPS tracking systems that will allow our crew to monitor the target, which is a Singaporean bulk carrier ship on its way to Beira, Mozambique. Our foot soldiers now await the green light from our mothership. While pinging the target's location, our mothership team will be checking to make sure our target is in international waters. This is to ensure that the crime they commit is not under any country's jurisdiction, making it harder for government personnel to act. International waters generally start 12 nautical miles away from land, and almost all pirate attacks happen at least that far out to increase their odds of success. But what they'll also be looking for is when the target anchors. Out of the 120 pirate attacks in 2023, 63 of them were on anchored ships, with 59 of them resulting in pirates successfully boarding the targeted vessel. Ultimately, an anchored ship is easier to board because it's not steaming and moving, it's stationary, making the boarding process much simpler. While traveling to ports, most of the time, commercial ships have to anchor before docking there to unload or pick up cargo. This can be because of ship congestion at the port, the tidal cycle, the ocean carrier schedule, and even other factors. And the main port at Beira, Mozambique, where our crew's target is traveling to, is no different. Conveniently, most anchorage areas happen to be several miles offshore, and although they may not be in international waters, it can still give pirates ample time to make their move. But this presents another challenge for our crew. The target would technically still be anchored in the Mozambique Channel, which is this area between Mozambique and Madagascar. So even if our target would decide to anchor roughly 12 miles offshore at Beira, which is normal to do at that anchorage area, the ship would still be under Mozambique's jurisdiction, making it harder to fully hijack the vessel, and nearby ships could add a further challenge. It's true, anchored ships are easier to board, but technically in 2023, all full hijacks were done on ships that were steaming much further offshore in international waters, and our crew is going for it all. They're going for a ransom. The target is nearing the Mozambique Channel by the hour, and any closer could present unforeseen challenges, so these pirates need to make their move. So with the target's last updated location, our mothership gives the green light. At about 3:15 a.m. in the morning, our foot soldiers make their way to intersect our target. They're split into 3 separate skiffs, 5 on each, and they carry weapons, like AK-47s, to hopefully intimidate and fire upon the target ship if needed. At around 4 a.m., the foot soldiers are near the target's path and radio the mothership. It's dark, so the target will have limited visibility of our foot soldiers, but they may have something to counter the attack, an anti-piracy radar, but luckily it shouldn't be able to pick up our small skiffs. At this point, our foot soldiers are right next to our target, but 2 of our skiffs have been spotted. The target ship begins to shoot fire hoses and flares at our crew, but unbeknownst to them, one of our skiffs has gone to the other side of the target ship. Bulk carrier ships are 340 meters long on average, or about 1,100 feet, but only have a crew size of 20 men in some cases. Some companies may opt to have a larger crew and hire additional security to combat pirates, but at the end of the day, that all costs more money, almost $20,000 extra per day in some cases. So some companies, like the one who happens to own this ship, may rather run the risk of a potential pirate attack. But since this ship is so long, it can be hard to secure every angle, so our pirate crew is using this to their advantage. While 2 skiffs are being shot at by flares and sprayed with fire hoses, our 3rd skiff is getting ready to climb aboard. They still have to watch out for fire hoses, since right now they're being shot at from all sides, but this shouldn't be a problem, because we came prepared. You might be thinking that our pirate crew is going to do something outside the box to get onto the ship, like having the ship's blueprints and cutting into the engine room. That'd be interesting, but our crew is going for a more time-tested approach. Our 3rd skiff will shoot a grappling hook onto the target, catching a rail to stabilize themselves a bit. Then, they'll use a long hook ladder to catch the rail and climb onto the ship, and in a few moments, 5 of our pirates are now aboard the bulk carrier. They've now taken aim at several crew members and look to make their way to the navigation bridge to take full control of the vessel. This allows our other 10 members to rinse and repeat the boarding process. Our pirates move in swift coordination, eventually getting to the navigation bridge and taking control of the ship, and the 20 members of the target ship's crew have now been taken hostage. The first half of the operation is now complete. And now, the second half of this operation begins. The reason our pirate crew decided to attack this bulk carrier ship wasn't for the cargo it's carrying. Rather, it was to hold the crew members hostage. Based on current prices, crew members can be valued at $120,000 per person, meaning that in this case, the 20 crew members taken hostage by our pirates is roughly worth $2.4 million. So, right away, the pirates will have their hostages contact the company who owns the ship, and here's where things take a twist. To my surprise, negotiations start almost immediately. In our pirate crew, a negotiator will most likely be present, and they can also phone into the mothership if needed. But you're probably wondering, why would a company want to negotiate with pirates? I was thinking the same thing, but it turns out that a lot of companies actually carry something called K&R insurance. It's kidnap and ransom insurance. So these companies are essentially already prepared to pay a ransom, and then in turn get reimbursed by the insurance company, because companies paying ransoms is not actually illegal. What shocked me even more is that it's almost like a standard practice in this industry. In fact, less than 10% of companies are actually insured, meaning the ships that end up paying the ransom see it as just the cost of doing business. And the reason really comes down to insurance premiums. Yes, that's right. Insurance premiums may be the missing puzzle piece as to why pirate attacks are running rampant. A one-way voyage through the Gulf of Aden can cost about $20,000. So instead of paying the premium, some companies will opt to run the risk and will end up paying ransoms if hijacked instead of losing out on precious cargo. And what's even more bizarre is that a lot of pirate attacks actually go unreported. The reason is not what you think. It's actually to keep insurance premiums lower and to trick the insurance industry into thinking that open seas are far safer than they really are. But let's get back on track. Our pirates are actively negotiating a deal, and sometimes this process can last a while. From the example in the beginning of this video, I told you about the MV Abdullah, and that ransom taking 33 days to be paid after the pirates had hijacked the vessel. But in reality, that's actually a fast turnaround, because sometimes vessels can be held hostage for months due to the pirates' demands not being met, and in other cases, like in the movie Captain Phillips, which details the events of pirates eventually failing to hold the Maersk Alabama hostage, only held the crew for 5 days before 3 pirates were taken out by US Navy SEALs. And in this fictional example that we've created, our pirates will end up holding our crew hostage for only a month's time. In the span of this month, the company of the hostage ship may alert its government and any nearby authorities, but any efforts to take back the ship may result in hostages being hurt or worse. So each side turns to negotiation until they both hit an agreement. Once the company agrees to pay the pirates' asking price of $2.4 million, a private security company will be hired to deliver the money to the pirates. In most cases, the money will be concealed in large floating plastic containers, almost always in the currency of US dollars, and will be flown in by a helicopter, then dropped into the ocean nearby. Our pirates will retrieve it, make sure the money is real, and then free the crew and avoid any authorities that may have been alerted. But part of the ransom negotiation usually includes giving the pirates a window of opportunity to walk away freely, or in this case, get back into their skiffs and go home to their mothership. The ship's crew are now free and can get back on track to doing business and making up for lost time. But the pirates are now free too, and $2.4 million richer. But their story doesn't end here. It actually gets even more bizarre, because you and I are about to find out who actually would have funded this type of operation. Once our pirate crew is off safe and sound with the money, you might be thinking that they really are taking home $2.4 million, but this isn't exactly the case. In fact, each of our pirates may only earn as little as $30,000 each, less than 1% of the total ransom. For our 15 foot soldiers and 3 mothership operators, that's only $540,000, or a little more than a quarter of the ransom put together. Our pirates will most likely use this money to fund other criminal activities, like human trafficking and even militias, which is absolutely horrifying. But where's the other 75% of the ransom going? Some of it may go back to the community members who had invested into the operation by providing food and other services. But most of that money is going to go back to the pirate financiers, the Money Kingpins. This is Mohammed Abdi Hassan, the first kingpin. He was born in Haradhere, Somalia, and in 2005, he would found the Hubyo Haradhere Piracy Network, the Pirate Stock Exchange. This gave him and his fellow pirates the ability to use outside investments to fund their operations. And over the next 8 years, Hassan would end up making millions of dollars off of modern-day piracy. He would be responsible for countless piracy operations over this time period, including the hijacking of the MV Sirius Star supertanker and Ukrainian tank laden MV Faina in 2008. He would amass a cult following and even be hailed as a national hero by the Libyan Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. But eventually, Hassan's reign as the greatest modern-day pirate would come to an end when he tried to divest his money and start a business empire to launder his earnings and wash it clean. And in 2016, he'd eventually be sentenced to 22 years in prison by the Belgian government. But Hassan started something. He started a new dawn of piracy, where men on the outside could invest into a criminal operation and get away with it if they were careful enough. And that's exactly what's happening now. You see, once our pirates are off with the ransom money, they're going to repay their investor. They could take the money and run, but there'd be repercussions, like their safety and not having a way to fund and plan further pirate operations in the future, since kingpins most likely help plan these attacks as well. So, they opt to give their angel investor their cut. But how is this all done without being caught? Enter Hawala. Hawala is a system that allows people to transfer funds, even if they don't have access to financial networks, and in the case of our pirates, allows them to transfer money without it being traced. You see, Hawala doesn't operate the same way a wire transfer through a bank does. Instead, it works based on trust through a network of Hawaladars or Hawala dealers. So, let's say the pirates want to send the rest of the money from the ransom to their kingpin investor through Hawala. They'll go to a Hawala dealer in Mogadishu and pay that dealer the money they owe their kingpin investor, along with the name of the recipient, city, and a password. Then, that dealer will contact a Hawala dealer in the city of this investor. In this case, it's Dubai. They'll ask this dealer in Dubai to give the kingpin investor the money on the condition that they can give the correct password. The investor will get his money, and the Hawala dealer from Mogadishu will pay back the dealer in Dubai for this transaction. Nothing is signed or can easily be traced. It's built upon trust, honor, and relationships. And I should note, Hawala dealers will take anywhere from 0.5% to 7% commission for these services. But how exactly is this legal? Well, Hawala has actually been deemed illegal in countries like the US and India, for instance. But it is legal in other countries and is technically an Islamic banking system, but not limited to Islamic countries. And it's legal in the UAE, as long as the Hawala provider is registered with the United Arab Emirates Central Bank and abides by the regulations that exist there. And it's been reported by the Daily Beast that a whistleblower claimed that a classified internal report at the US Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, has concluded that modern-day pirates are funded by Somalis and Emiratis based in Dubai. This is based in part on an independent Interpol probe that managed to identify several men behind recent pirate operations, but FinCEN, which declined to comment publicly on this matter, has enough tracking information on the initial ransom payments to have recently made an unofficial request to the UAE for assistance in cracking down on these pirate kingpins. But so far, the UAE has declined to move forward with this request. And of course, this claim actually comes from the year 2017, and as far as I know, nothing has come to fruition. But it does raise the question of who exactly is funding these pirate operations. And with Hawala being a safe way to transfer ransom money from these operations, it would make sense that investors are in places where Hawala is legal to use. It seems like there's almost no way pirate operations can fail now. The pirates are well funded, organized, efficient, and their money seemingly can't be traced. And even if it is traced, there may still not be enough evidence to apprehend the men behind these crimes. But in a world where pirates seem to be endlessly raining terror on the shipping industry, there are forces out there fighting on the other side. Who exactly is fighting the war on modern-day piracy? Modern-day piracy is estimated to cost the world economy $37 billion this year. That in itself is crazy. And it's why it's in the interest of all countries to ensure that shipping lanes are made secure and safe from piracy. Knowing this, I was wondering what the US was doing about this problem, since they're one of the world's superpowers and have a military force that spans the entire globe. Up until the pirate attack on the Maersk, Alabama in 2009, that the movie Captain Phillips is based on, the Western world's general population was unfamiliar with modern piracy and the struggles it was bringing to the world economy. But when that US vessel was attacked, it was the first US ship that was boarded by pirates in over 200 years. So the US Navy stepped in and ended up sending Navy SEALs to take out pirates and free hostages. And this started a domino effect, where the US government would start to get more involved in the fight against pirates. The US and NATO allies would start a new campaign to fight pirates, called Operation Ocean Shield. It was started in 2009 and had partly come to fruition after Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State at the time, had outlined a set of counter-piracy initiatives. Ocean Shield aimed to protect ships that were transporting relief supplies in the Indian Ocean, Guadalquivir Channel, Gulf of Aden, and Arabian Sea. It also aimed to strengthen the navies and coast guards of other countries to assist in countering pirate attacks. More military forces would be on the water to hopefully stop and even deter pirates from attacking. And it worked. If you remember this chart from the beginning of the video, pirate attacks dramatically started to drop once Ocean Shield was implemented. Pirates were losing the sea, and it seemed like the modern-day pirate would eventually cease to exist. But as you already know, that's not exactly what happened. In December of 2016, Operation Ocean Shield would be terminated. NATO stated that it would be reallocating its resources to the Mediterranean to deal with the immigrant crisis and human smuggling. And since then, there has been a bit of a resurgence in piracy, specifically Somalian pirates who were the reason Ocean Shield came about in the first place. But one thing was for certain, US-owned ships would now basically be invincible from pirate attacks, because of the precedent set by Ocean Shield and the attack on the Maersk, Alabama. If you attack a US ship, you'll be met by the US Navy, and this is why pirates today almost never attack US-owned ships. In fact, there are only 2 reported incidents of US ships being attacked by pirates in 2023, compared to Singapore-owned ships being attacked 19 times out of the 120 attacks reported that year. The US won the battle, but it seems like the pirates may still be winning the war. In reality, piracy never disappeared, but it just doesn't affect the West anymore, and that's why it goes unnoticed. But there are other countries and forces that are still fighting the war on modern-day piracy. In fact, the US Navy does still help patrol the oceans, just not to the same scale that they were during Operation Ocean Shield. The International Maritime Organization, among other things, also aims to protect against pirates by regulating maritime safety. The United Nations Security Council is another entity helping to lead this charge, and countries themselves, like Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and Singapore, have put forward efforts to help stop piracy with coordinated patrols near the Strait of Malacca. Despite this, pirates are still out there today, so companies have started to take matters into their own hands. There's been an emerging role of private military and security companies, PSMCs, to help protect commercial ships. These are private businesses that aim to protect and fight against pirates when they're contracted to do so. You see, even when tons of military vessels are in the water, pirates still seem to be attacking, so PSMCs are a way shipping companies can help even their odds. Sometimes, companies will contract PSMCs to patrol specific shipping routes and even escort them. They may even contract PSMCs to be aboard the ship to help monitor and deter pirates from attacking. I mentioned this earlier in the video, and it's definitely a way to fight against pirates, but it can also cost companies a lot of money, like $20,000 a day or more, depending on what services they need. So like I said before, a lot of companies are running the risk and deciding the odds outweigh the cost they lose out on by hiring extra security. One thing shipping companies can do, and are doing, is having equipment aboard the ship to help combat piracy attacks. In the fictional example of a pirate heist we went through, crew members used fire hoses and flares to try and deter the pirates from boarding the vessel. And even though they were unsuccessful, this equipment is still relevant and should be used in order to even the odds of a potential boarding. Ships are now sometimes using electric barbed wire on the sides of the boat to make it harder for pirates to climb aboard using hook ladders. In fact, there's even more new technology that could help put a stop to successful pirate boardings altogether. Some of these include using just simple nets as boat traps that catch onto the propellers of pirate boats and skiffs, essentially stranding them out in the ocean. The anti-piracy curtain is another tool, where hoses swing on the sides of the ship and will hurt anyone trying to board. There's concepts like the P-trap, which carries thin lines that float around the vessel's sides and automatically entangle the propellers of pirate boats when they get too close. And many more anti-piracy mechanisms like air compression cannons and laser devices. And if pirates are to attack, crew members are trained on what to do in these situations, and if pirates do end up boarding, the crew can try to immobilize the ship and alert authorities as quickly as they can. You'd think with all of this money and strategy going towards fighting pirates would make them go extinct. But there's one thing that is undermining all of this, and we already discussed it. Companies would rather pay ransoms than pay for more security and spend more on new technology to combat pirates. It's honestly kind of horrifying when you start to think about the lives of people that these shipping companies are putting in danger. Wouldn't it be in the best interest of everyone to fully eradicate the possibility of crew members being taken hostage, or worse, getting hurt or even losing their lives in the process? I don't necessarily think that these companies don't care, but it is eye-opening to me that they'd much rather run the risk. Because at the end of the day, to them, pirate attacks and paying ransoms are just another cost of doing business. And one last thing before this video ends, if you enjoyed this mini documentary about modern day pirates, then definitely make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment down below of what you think should be done to stop modern day piracy. And stay tuned because I've got some more documentaries on the way, and if you want to see any specific topics, just let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.